I feel like I talk too much. And then when someone says your wisdom, I'm like, I am not wise. I'm just older.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. I'm just 55 and I don't mind talking. It's another Q&A. And this time I'm all by myself. No Bert, no nobody, just me. Just me. So let's see how it goes. Should we?
Hi, LeeAnn. I love your pod very much. Thank you for doing your pod. I look forward to it every week. I'm a 30-year-old woman. I'm married to my husband, who's also 30. We recently found out that we're pregnant, our first baby. We are very excited. However, I have this kind of a dilemma. To give you my background, I grew up in a very emotionally, financially unstable household. My mom is a single mom who's been divorced twice. I've always took care of my siblings. But this past couple of years, I worked really hard on my mental health. My husband and I worked very hard, and now we own a house. I recently went back to school to get my bachelor degree. I love my career very much. And then this baby happened, and we have no intention to, abort the child. We were very excited to become parents. But I have this dilemma of, I have to take care of somebody again. So my question is, if you felt anything like this when you had your kids, if you did, how did you process that? Or how did you walk through that emotion? Again, I love your pod. I hope you hear my question. Thank you, LeeAnn. Bye.
Yes. Being a caretaker as a child and then becoming a caretaker of a child is an interesting experience. I think similar to you, I was a caretaker as I didn't have siblings, but I definitely kind of was an adult and as a child and took care of a lot of people emotionally. So when I got pregnant, I did think about that. And I did struggle with that sometimes. I have a gift/curse, I think. I have several of them. One of them is honesty. I am really honest with myself. Usually, no one is ever 100% honest. We bury things. We make excuses for things. We deny things, obviously. But for the most part, I'm pretty honest with myself and how I feel about something. And so I was able to kind of stay in that honest place and be able to talk to a friend, sister-in-law, my husband, a therapist about feeling overwhelmed or not cared for. And even though sometimes that wouldn't shift my responsibilities or my day-to-day or even my feeling that much, just being able to tell somebody and be honest about how I felt was really powerful, because when you talk about the things you're struggling with, someone else can help you carry the struggle. Even if your actual work is the same, it just kind of lightens your load a little bit. I understand your trepidation. I think if you decide to become a parent and really be a parent, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about and a lot to plan and predict and try and teach yourself along the way. Here's the good news, right? You get the opportunity to parent in a different way than you maybe parented your siblings. You get the opportunity to parent this child the way you would have liked to have been parented. You get an opportunity to build something brand new based on nothing that you've known before, because you get to choose and decide how you lay your life out for the most part. Obviously, people have financial restrictions or job obligation restrictions, but for the most part, even how you handle that is something that you can choose or you can reframe. I would love to tell you that having a baby felt completely different than the obligation you had to people when you were a child, but that wasn't my experience. The only thing I could do for myself was to reframe that experience so that it became enriching for me. And every day wasn't enriching. Like, I feel like sometimes when I talk on the podcast, people think, oh, she's just done this so perfectly the whole time. That is not true. I had days where I felt like crap about being a parent, like I was failing, like I was a horrible mother, like I was making bad choices, like I was repeating bad patterns. I had all of those days too. But really what matters most is the ratio of things, right? You're never going to be 100% good parent. But if your ratio of good parent is far above your ratio of bad parent, then you're doing okay. So I think that you've even asked the question, how do you deal with these feelings that I'm having, is half the battle, so that you can start putting things in place that help you maybe not feel that way as acutely, get some support systems now. Tell your friends now, I'm concerned, I'm feeling this way, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it. And, if you have a good friend or a good support system, they'll step up and say, well, I'll help you handle that as best I can. I don't know, that's what I would say. I hope that's helpful. I think framing, when you come from a place of having a childhood that is not the childhood you want to replicate for your child, it's an amazing opportunity to create, to observe yourself making choices as a parent, and in that observation, choose how you're going to parent. Am I going to do what I was taught, or am I going to do something new? You can do that with your relationship with your husband, and both of your relationship with your kid. So that's what I would look at it as an opportunity to make new choices. So that way you kind of get to live two lives. You lived one life as a parent to your siblings, and now you get to live a whole nother life as a parent. I think about this often. I just read a memoir where a woman had 3 kids when she was like 18, 20, really young. And when her youngest of those 3 was 19, she got pregnant and had 2 more kids. And I went, that's so fascinating. She actually got to be a parent twice. So the first time she was a parent, she's young, she has a lot of energy, she doesn't know anything, so she doesn't know any better. And she admits herself, she made mistakes in those parenting years. And then to get the opportunity to do it again, even though it's not something I would choose, I thought how fascinating that you can do this all over again and make a whole different set of choices and heal some things that you maybe have broken in this other experience. So maybe I'd look at it that way as well. What can you take from raising your siblings and change so that you can heal yourself in this second path of parenting? Anyway, I'm so happy for you that you're having a baby. It sounds like you're happily married and thriving, and being a parent can be extremely fulfilling and can make you understand yourself in a much deeper way if you just stay self-reflective and stay honest with yourself, reach out for help when you need it, and be kind to yourself on the path, because you'll always feel like you're screwing up. And just be kind when you have those days where you're like, oh, I really did that wrong. I hope that's helpful.
Hi, LeeAnn. My name is Sabrina Burns. And first of all, I just want to say I just love you and your husband. Y'all's dynamic. It's just great watching you two. My question is, so I have 4 children. 2 are grown and moved out of the house. My 2 youngest children, 12 and 5. My 5-year-old is autistic, nonverbal. My question is not only how do you balance giving my 12-year-old what she needs while also giving my 5-year-old what he needs, because it's obviously 2 totally different worlds, but also I'm struggling with my husband and I connecting, and, we're so exhausted and we put so much energy in to my 5-year-old's needs. Of course, he needs those things from us. We give it to him. But at the end of the day, we're just so beat and worn. We have very little time or energy for each other. And we both recognize how important it is for that time. We just don't have it. We don't have the energy. We don't have the time. And I guess my question is, how do you balance it all? How do you be a great mom to your, special needs child, and a great mom to your 12-year-old daughter, and a great wife to your husband and partner, and also while trying to do for yourself? Self-care is so important as well. I mean, I can't give them what they need if I'm not taking care of myself. And currently I don't take care of myself because, again, I'm just so tired. It's like, who wants to go to the gym? Who wants to eat right? I'm just going to grab a quick snack, or, if I have 5 minutes, do I want to go to the gym, or do I want to sit on the couch and just breathe? And normally I pick sit on the couch and just breathe by myself for a second. So yeah, that's really my question, is how the balancing act. How do you balance it all? Thank you.
Well, I don't have special needs kids like you do. I had, someone who had very distinct learning differences and needed a lot of support. So there's similarities, but I would never pretend to understand what it's like to have a nonverbal autistic child. That's got to be something that's very challenging, much more so than Isla with a learning disability. So kudos to you for working so hard and for trying to balance it all. When you were talking, I was like, first thing I want to say to you is you should take the word great out of this equation. A great mom to the 12-year-old, a great mom to the 5-year-old, a great wife, a great partner, great to myself. Greatness is really hard to achieve in every arena at all times. I think I want you to feel good about each area. Does that make sense? Sometimes I think we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and that's why we don't achieve them, is because they're really unrealistic. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is about the differences between my children. Georgia, who is a very typical learner, very independent learner, easy A student, and Isla, who struggled to read, still struggles to read. When I could sense at a time in middle school or actually late elementary school, when I felt like Georgia was not happy with how much time I had to spend with Isla to get her just through school. And I just had very frank, honest conversations with Georgia. And I tried to help her reframe some things for herself, because there's not an extra hour in the day. As much as I would have loved to have said, like, yes, I do homework with Isla every single night, so then I will take you to the movies every single night. That doesn't work. It's just impossible. So what I tried to do was show her moments in the day, even if they were small, where I focused on her, even if they were small, even if it was as silly as cutting the sandwich the way she wanted it cut, as opposed to just cutting the sandwiches, right? If you cut them both in like triangles, I would cut her in 4 squares to make sure she knew I was doing something just for her. That took nothing but just a little bit of thoughtfulness. It didn't take any extra time. So I tried to do little things like that, and to just be really honest with Georgia, to say, you each have different needs. Hers may take up more volume of my day, but it doesn't mean yours isn't as present as hers in my day. I think communicating clearly that child, your 12-year-old, is important, and those subtle messages of how they're important. I'll write a note, leave it on the nightstand. That takes you a minute, a fraction of a minute, just to give that kid a little bit of something that is special. I think that's at least what I tried to do with Georgia. And I still, to be honest, felt like I failed through the whole thing. But I was doing the best I could. And I explained that to Georgia too. There's one me and there's 2 of you. The math of it doesn't work. So how do we make it work the best we can? How can we be a team here? And so that would be my suggestion with your 12-year-old. With your husband and with making sure you take care of each other, I think that can also be something as simple and subtle as writing a simple note or giving a foot rub at the end of the day or making someone a drink, even if it's just a soda. Like I'm making myself a Diet Coke, I'm going to make him one too. It's just a shift in thoughtfulness and inclusion and in care. I think giving automatically creates something that's given back. So when you give in a small way, that's given back. Being able to express gratitude to your partner, to your child in a simple way, it can really mean a lot and can make you feel differently about how you're caring for them and how you're being cared for. I know intention, shifting your intention with caring for your husband or yourself can make a big difference in how you feel about what you're doing. So your intention to care for yourself, and at the end of the day, you're exhausted, you just want to sit on the couch. Okay, you can frame that as self-care. But what if you decide, I can sit on the couch after I do 10 squats? Well, 10 squats might take you 30 seconds. But then you've done some things that in your brain you can go, well, at least I did 10 squats. You know, you can balance on one foot while you brush your teeth. And then you can go, you know what, that sounds really stupid. But balance is a core part of like your physical health and well-being. That's a really simple thing you can put in your day that makes you feel like you've done a little something to be mindful of your own health until you have a time where you can focus on working out. Hopefully, you can build in little habits here and there just in your day-to-day. And none of that costs any money. I mean, doing 10 squats costs you nothing. And maybe you do 10 squats before you sit on the couch. And maybe you do, 5 sit-ups before you go to bed. I don't know. You can find little places to put little things like that. I got really into drinking hot tea as self-care. Now, you can drink hot tea while you're cooking dinner. You can drink hot tea while you're washing dishes. You can drink hot tea while you're folding laundry. You can drink. So if you can find something like that you quantify as self-care and incorporate it in your life, it's kind of like habit stacking. Like if you need to take a medication every day, you put it next to your toothbrush so that you remember you're going to brush your teeth every day. Now I'm going to take this medication too. So how can you find things you're already doing and add care for your spouse, care for your 12-year-old, or care for yourself into that moment? Some moments you won't be able to, but you definitely can do 10 squats before you sit on the couch for the day. And it might just change how you feel mentally about your whole day. So those are the things that I did when I was in the thick of it with kids. And obviously now my kids got older, I got to really dive into self-care in a different way and work out regularly. But that's how I did it back in the day. Writing a note, like I was talking about, a Post-it note to my kids. I used to write notes and put them in their lunch boxes all the time. And I would write each note for each kid. It wasn't like, love mom, and each note. They were very specific for the kid. And it didn't take me very much time to do that. But I think that's one of the things that really made Georgia feel like I was still there, even though I was focused on Isla and trying to get her needs met for just getting through school. It sounds to me from your energy that you're an amazing person, that you're so conscientious about all of the people that you love in your life and about yourself. And you're right. If you can't find some time for self-care, it makes it really hard to care for everybody else. I think you just have to reframe. I know for me, I thought self-care was like going to get a massage. Well, that's an hour. I don't have an hour. So then I go, well, then I have nothing. But I think that's not true. I think you can make it as simple as a cup of hot tea or get up 5 minutes earlier and write something to yourself. There's lots of books. Someone gave me a book for my birthday last year. It was a dear, close friend of mine who wrote me a beautiful note inside the book. And the book was a thought for the day. So, and each thought is maybe 3 sentences, is super simple. But I wake up and I read that thought for the day and I really think about that thought for the day. And it does 2 things for me. One is it makes me feel loved by the person who gave me the book every day. And the second thing is it makes me focus on myself and think about what that book is saying to me relative to my life in that moment. And that might take me 2 minutes. So I think you should start looking for little things like that you can implement into your day. I'd be interested to hear if you do that for like 6 weeks. I would love for you to call me back and see how it's affected how you feel about everything. I'd be really interested in hearing that. So give it a shot and call me back. When we were young, we used to dream of being anything: an astronaut, the president, a prince, or a princess. But as you get older, your dreams change, focusing less on running the world and more on how you can take your skills and ideas and turn them into something real. Instead of dreaming of going to space or owning your own castle, maybe you start dreaming of owning your own business. You'll need a website, a payment system, a logo, and a way to advertise to new customers. It can all be overwhelming and confusing, but thankfully, that's where today's sponsor, Shopify, comes in. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. From household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. What if I can't design a website? Well, Shopify's got you from the get-go with beautiful, ready-to-go templates to match your brand style. What if I need a hand? Get help with everyday tasks like enhancing product images, writing product descriptions, or generating discount codes with Shopify AI tools created for commerce. What if people haven't heard about my brand? Shopify helps you find your customers with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. We've been using Shopify for years and years, and I like that it is so user-friendly for me. I can go on the website and check my inventory, track my sales, look at my shipping. It just makes running a business so user-friendly. Turn those dreams into cha-ching and give them the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/wife. Go to shopify.com/wife. Shopify.com/wife.
Hi, LeeAnn. I just recently started watching your podcast, honestly, like a week ago, and I've been binging so much. I love it. I love all your advice. I feel like you're so thoughtful with your words, and I just had sort of a quick question for you. So I know you've been pretty transparent with the relationship that you've had with your mother in the past and how you don't speak to her anymore. I'm a 19-year-old young lady, I guess, and I still live with my mother and my father. I'm going to community college to save some money, living at home to save some money. And my mother, I have 3 older siblings. She's had a rocky relationship with all of them. You know, they've been kicked out, moved back in, kicked out, everything. And I feel like I would have a really great relationship with her, just at a distance. And currently I see her every single day, so it's not the best relationship. We don't communicate well. We fight all the time. I try to be patient, but she is a difficult person to talk to because of her lack of accountability. So I've just kind of putting that to the side and tried to focus on, you know, doing the things that make me happy and benefit me and, you know, remaining respectful to her. And with that, you know, I've worked in an environment where there's a lot of older people, older men and older women around the age of what my mother is, 55, 60. And I talk to them every single day, and I've found myself almost making these older women in my life, not only the ones that I see like at work, but you know, my boyfriend's mother too, almost kind of making them surrogate mothers and feeling that sort of attachment to them. And I'm just very confused all around, and I wanted to know if you've ever had to like dealt with that, or if not, how you have dealt with feeling alone. Because, you know, there's certain things that you go to your mom for. There's certain things that you want to ask a mom's advice for. And it's tough when you don't have that. And you crave that. So I wanted to know how you've dealt with that. Any advice there, I'd really appreciate it. My name is Emily. Like I said, I love your podcast, and just thank you.
Oh, Emily, you're the same age as my daughter. Uh, yes, that is really, really hard. And I will tell you, throughout my life, I've had other women who I connected with better than my mom, who were more of a mom to me in the way that I needed a mom than my mom was able to be. And it was not great for my relationship with my mom to have other women be that kind of mentor, soft place to fall, safe haven for me. It made my relationship with my mom harder in some ways. At the same time, I needed to take care of myself. And this sounds depressing. I don't mean it to be depressing. I mean it to be just direct and matter of fact. One person on this planet will take care of you, and that is you forever. So obviously you'll get married and that person will take care of you. Your grandparents take care of you. But all of that is kind of limited. Everybody's limited in their ability to really take care of you. The one person that can do that is you. So at the end of the day, if you really love yourself and you value your growth and development, then seeking out mentors in places where not just your parents, but maybe your boss, maybe your best friend, maybe your spouse eventually. If you seek out a mentor in places where you're not getting a need met, as long as it's not an unhealthy relationship or completely unethical or immoral to the person that you are, like, let me give you an example to make this clearer. I really don't think your spouse should be 100% end all be all your person. I think they should be mostly your person. But there are things that I would talk to my best friend about that I shouldn't really talk to my husband about. Not because I'm keeping a secret from him. That's different. To keep a secret from him is not okay. But to call my best friend and go, he's driving me crazy because he just keeps dropping his shoes at the back door. And it's killing me. And I've told him 1,000,000 times and he keeps doing it. And I just need to get it off my chest so that I can go back and be a good partner to him. That's an appropriate relationship. And I think that is true also with your parents. Sometimes your parents fulfill a certain role and that role is limited in what you need from a parent figure. So one of the reasons I started going to therapy is because I didn't have a parent figure. And the person I'm still in therapy with is older than me, not as old as my mom, but definitely a mentor and someone that I would reach out to for certain things that you would reach out to a mom. Now, I wouldn't reach out to my therapist. For other things, I would reach out to my mom too. I have a couple of friends who are older than me that are that person for me. I don't think there's anything wrong with finding a mentor for you if you're feeling like you're not getting your needs met from your mom. If you're feeling like it's not safe, and I don't mean that in like the buzzword, it's not safe. I mean like if you don't feel comfortable reaching to her for certain things, then you need to trust that instinct and find who you feel comfortable with. There's some things positive I don't feel comfortable talking to my parent about. And that's okay too. Your mom's not supposed to be your everything. That's not healthy. So, you want her to be certain things, but if she's not capable, you can't really change that either. So you have to choose to take care of yourself, not in an arrogant, go fuck yourself way, in just a really honest, loving way. There was a woman when I was in acting school in Atlanta when I was 20, maybe 21 years old. Her name was Linda Coverdale, and I love Linda. And Linda took me under her wing. She's about my mom's age, and we became very good friends. But it definitely was a like aunt-niece dynamic. Maybe not mother-daughter, but definitely like aunt-niece. And I valued her friendship so much because she was a place where I could just exhale and just be whatever was going on for me. She saw me for what was going on for me and could see things I couldn't see because she was older and had lived life and saw me for who I was and liked me for who I was and didn't ask me to be anything other than exactly who I was. That was an invaluable relationship. She gave me permission. That relationship gave me permission to explore myself in a different way. It was such an important relationship. My dad's second wife is still an important relationship in my life. And she's definitely someone I looked at for motherly qualities that she possessed my mom did not possess. They were very different women. And I got certain things from my mom that are invaluable. She's not like I didn't learn anything positive from my mom. I learned a ton of great stuff from my mom. However, I needed other things that were outside of her capabilities. So I found them from other people. I think that's completely appropriate for you. I would caution you to not maybe, for lack of a better word, flaunt it in front of your mother. It sounds like if your mother has a contentious relationship with your other siblings and you're already having some bumps with her, not that you need to keep it a secret because that is not very healthy either. But no need to be like, I'm going with Linda Coverdale today, because then there's no point in doing that. You sound very wise. You sound wise beyond your years. You sound like, Emily, that you watched your older siblings navigate this difficult relationship and are deciding to course correct to take care of yourself. And that's extremely mature and very healthy. So I applaud you for that, for being aware that, I may not be getting what I need here, and I'm not sure I want that to be my relationship and what's going on here. That's extremely mature and a very healthy question to ask yourself. I think too, when I was your age, but seriously, when I was your age, and I think having kids your age, you really want to be your own person, and that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing biologically, emotionally, mentally. And I don't think you should shy away from that. Really walk into being your own person, because from this point on, your life is yours. And whatever has happened while you're growing up with your family, however that's affected you positively or negatively, as you had mentioned, your mom sometimes has a hard time with accountability. Accountability is your best friend. And if you're not accountable to yourself for taking care of yourself and getting your needs met at this point, even if it's outside of your family of origin, that's a misstep on your part. So I think that you are on the right path to identify this and start going, maybe I should lean into some of these ladies that you work with in a careful, cautious, mindful way. I think you may find you get some needs met and it may relax you at home a little bit. But sometimes if an itch gets scratched, no matter where that itch is scratched, it makes everything more comfortable. So I would hope that for you, is that if you get kind of what you need from some of these other ladies, it might improve your relationship with your mom. I hope that was helpful. Emily, good luck.
Hi, LeeAnn. I really love your podcast. Your wisdom is super comforting to me. My question is, how do you move on from past mistakes and regrets? I'm 25, but in college, I didn't always conduct myself in the best ways or ways that I'm proud of. I couldn't really control my drinking, and I was smoking a lot of weed to cope with my anxiety. I lost a lot of my close friends along the way, not just because of those things, but indirectly through some of my actions. I have since stopped smoking, and I do drink a lot more intentionally now, but I'm still holding on to those feelings of regret. I feel a lot of shame, and I just wish things had turned out different. Thank you for listening, and thank you again for your podcast.
Well, thank you for sharing, and boy, do I relate to that. There was so much stuff I did in college that I was ashamed of, that I felt were destructive, bad choices, not being the best friend to some of my friends, big mistakes made, trying to correct big mistakes in a bad way and making mistakes even worse. That was You are not alone, I think that's part of what a lot of people go through in their 20s. I think a lot of people posture like they got all their shit together in their 20s, and I don't buy it. There's more of us that were broken and limping through the 20s than people let on. I think you're really, really ahead of the game at 25 to go, maybe that wasn't the best. And how do I feel better about that? I'll tell you exactly how you feel better about that, because this is what I did. You forgive yourself. You forgive yourself as if you were 5 years old and made those mistakes. Obviously, a 5-year-old's not drinking and smoking weed and being a bad friend. But if you just have the compassion for yourself that you would have for any 5-year-old and really forgive yourself. And what I did was I wrote a lot about what I was ashamed of. I wrote out what I was ashamed of, and then I would write out forgiving myself as if my best friend came to me and said, hey, I did this horrible stuff and I feel really ashamed. And then I would comfort myself in those situations and the things that I felt bad about. Forgiveness is the fastest path to freedom, whether that's forgiveness of a friend or forgiveness of yourself. And if you feel like the friendships that you're broken, that the friendships that broke down during that time in your life, what will set you free from that is accountability and apology to those friends. It doesn't mean you'll get the friend back, but it means you'll get the freedom from the guilt or shame of how that friendship broke down. I had an experience in New York. I think I've talked about this before. I needed a place to stay. I was in a bad way with my mom, and I was in acting school, and my acting teacher knew something was off and asked me about it, and I just fell apart. And I was like, I don't have anywhere to live. My mom kicked me out of my apartment. I'm like sleeping in the lobbies of like doorman buildings. I don't have anywhere to go. And another classmate in my acting class was Miss Georgia. Her name was Stephanie. And my acting teacher said to Stephanie, hey, can you help LeeAnn out? Like, let her sleep on your couch for a minute and let's help her figure out a place to live. And she did that. She was very gracious. I think I stayed on her couch for like 10 days. She helped me find an apartment. She was a dancer, like a Broadway dancer. And she had a friend who was a dancer who was moving in with her boyfriend. And that friend sublet an apartment for 3 months until I could figure out where else I could move. Stephanie was incredibly helpful. She saved me. And I treated her poorly, to be honest with you, at the end of it, because I was so embarrassed and ashamed. And I was just a mess. I was a complete and total mess. I was 24 years old, just for your point of reference, 23, 24. And I held on to that feeling for a long time. And then one day I sat down and wrote her a letter. And I wrote a letter just explaining my bad behavior, what I felt was my bad behavior, apologizing to her for treating her that way because she'd been so generous to me. And I actually never heard back from her. I ran into her years later. I don't even know if she remembered I wrote the letter or if she got the letter, but I did write it and I did mail it to her. And what that did for me was say, I don't need her to feel better. Well, no, it's not that. I don't, my intention for sending her that letter was to clear my own shame and guilt about it. So I didn't need her to come back and go, you know what? It's okay. I just needed her and the universe to know that I felt really bad about my poor behavior. And then I was able to let go of those feelings of how I treated Stephanie in a moment of extreme generosity on her part when I was in a place of being really screwed up. So that's one clear example of just kind of buttoning up those moments that you really feel strongly about where you weren't representing yourself in the way that you would have liked to, and you have embarrassment or shame or guilt about. Shame, there's a difference, between shame and guilt. And I think it's helpful to identify what you're feeling. So shame is a comment on who you are. Guilt is a comment on something you've done. So if you're feeling shame, then you're feeling something integrally inside you is wrong. If you're feeling guilt, you've done something wrong. So determine how you really feel when you use the word shame, because if it is shame, that's pretty deep, and you need to suss out that we all make mistakes, and you can shift something from shame into guilt. And guilt is much easier to forgive yourself for and let go of. So having that honest conversation with yourself about, is this really shame or is it guilt? And if it is shame, how do I reframe that and kind of focus it into guilt? Brené Brown wrote a great book called Daring Greatly. And she talks about shame versus guilt in this book. And when I read her book, probably 10 or 12 years ago, I don't even remember, it's been a long time, it opened my eyes in so many ways, and so many things just recalibrated from shame to guilt, like just from reading your book. Because I went, oh, well, I don't think that I'm a bad person. I think that I made a bad choice here. And when you can move it from shame to guilt, you can let go of it so much easier. So I would think about that in context to what you're struggling with that you're not so proud of. We all do things that we are not proud of. That is the nature of growing up. It's part of being in your 20s, is that you make mistakes you're not proud of. And then you figure out how to, you go one of two ways. You either decide you're going to keep those, and that's going to define who you are, which is not always great. Or you can decide you're going to learn from them and really dig in and learn from them. And in order to learn from them, you have to do a little bit of exploration of why you did these things, who it affected negatively besides yourself, and how can you forgive yourself, and how can you ask for forgiveness from others. Whether or not they give you forgiveness is none of your business, but asking for forgiveness is. So that's how I would look at what you're going through. I went through it so hardcore. I mean, when I was date raped in college, not to get super dark, but when I was date raped in college, I felt for sure that was my fault entirely for a very long time, because I was at a party. I was too drunk. I was very flirty. I was in a short skirt. I should have gone home. My friends tried to get me to go home and I wouldn't. And I left. I got myself in a bad situation. All of that is my responsibility. However, that violence happening to me was not. No one should have done that to anybody, much less me. So, but until I was able to sit down and forgive myself for wearing too short a skirt, for drinking too much, for not listening to my friends, for staying at the party too late, I had to really sit down and say, it's okay. It was a moment of bad judgment. And to be honest with you, it was maybe less than 7 minutes of your life that was violent and unhappy and unhealthy. Is that going to determine your whole life? Or are you going to decide to forgive yourself for some poor judgment that got you in a compromised position with a bad person? That to me was freedom. That forgiveness for those choices set me free. Me forgiving myself. And also forgiving the bad person. Forgiving the bad person is doesn't mean you forget, and it doesn't mean that you condone. But forgiving also sets you free. And you go, you know what? You're not in my life anymore. I don't want any attachment to this. Totally forgive you for that wrongdoing, and I'm moving on. Yeah, forgiveness is the key. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you for sharing. Did you do another one?
You're doing great.
I'm doing great? I don't know. I feel like I talk too much in these. I feel like I talk too much. And then when someone says, your wisdom, and I'm like, I am not wise. I'm just older. Yeah. That's what I feel like. I'm just 55 and I don't mind talking. That's what it is.
Hey, LeeAnn, long time listener and watcher. I always say this, but blessing for your show in general. Just
everything about it because I just watched the menopause one. I'm not in menopause. I'm sure I just turned 30, but I have been on birth control a really long time. So this is one of my questions so I have the one in my arm. I know it's not going to fall out. I'm not going to forget to take the pill, but I've been on it since I was in high school, and I did have trouble with other birth controls. So this one was just safe, made sense. But now, like, my hormones do feel kind of out of whack the last, like, I don't know, maybe 4 years, because now I don't get it. Like, if I get a period, this is a side effect, it's so minute. It's like barely a period. It's like the symptoms and like little tiny, like panty liner can deal with it. And then my doctors have been talking about like, oh, well, maybe you just need to get it out. And it's almost due to get out, just to regulate your hormones. But I'm scared kind of doing that because I just turned like 30. I'm like in a very healthy, stable relationship. And I don't really want to get off of the birth control because what if I get pregnant and I'm not ready for that yet? Like, how did you, because you got pregnant on the pill, handle like some of your birth control stuff before you got pregnant on the pill? What did your doctors say when you were around my age? Not saying I wouldn't love a kid, but this one bedroom apartment, I wouldn't really want a kid. So, just your opinions. Even though I'm younger, the menopause episode, that is a really good episode. It just gave me information and then made me think about myself and my birth control and how old I am. And girls need to talk about this more because men don't understand any of it. And it's awesome. All right. Anyway, thank you. I love your podcast. Adopt me soon.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the compliments. I am obviously not a doctor. I can only talk to you about my experience with hormones and with birth control. I was on birth control too from the time I was 16 until literally like 2.5 years ago, constantly, except when I was obviously pregnant. And I'll tell you this, I was on the same pill, Orthonovum 777, from 16 all the way up until right before I had Georgia. And because I was having some similar symptoms. I was having very little menstruation, and I just felt like I was a little out of whack. I was 33 when I got pregnant with Georgia, so a little older than you. But I'd been feeling a little out of whack for a while, and we changed my birth control pill a couple of months before I got pregnant. So clearly, even though I was on the pill, I think that pill wasn't right for me. But after Isla, when I was having postpartum stuff, my doctor put me on birth control, and I was having wild, like pill, I don't remember if it was Orthonovum again, but pill, take one pill a day, birth control. And I was having wild mood swings. And she was like, okay, I don't think your body is processing estrogen in this kind of single dose manner. So she gave me the Nuvo ring, which is a ring that you insert in your vagina, and it slow releases estrogen for the 21 days that you're supposed to, not have a period. And then you would remove it, have a period, and put another one in. So it was just kind of like a all day, every day release of estrogen for 21 days. And that regulated my hormones for that period of time when I was on birth control until I got off of it almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I think you're very valid in being concerned about what's going on with my hormones. I'm not familiar with the birth control that goes in your arm, but I'm assuming it's similar to the Nuvo ring where it's just a release over time. So your body's just being constantly fed estrogen. I can tell you this, based on the little bit of research and the knowledge I have from going through menopause and how your estrogen, progesterone kind of cycle throughout the month. there's just more to it than I think any layman like we knew. So I think it would be worth having a really in-depth conversation with your gynecologist about it. And if you're not satisfied with what they say or the advice they give you, find another gynecologist. That would be my suggestion. Would never pretend to know what you should do because I'm not a doctor. But if I would say this, trust your instincts. When I was going through this post-COVID hormonal upset, I knew deeply that something was wrong. And I know you've heard the story from the podcast, but after going to my regular doctor and whatever doctor gives you the colonoscopy, I can't remember what they're called, that doctor, proctologist or something, I don't know. Anyway, after going to them and they're all going, I was like, I still don't feel right. So if you don't feel right about your birth control and you still want to be on birth control, then go to a gynecologist that can help you figure that out. I don't think anybody should get off birth control if they're not ready to have a kid. I think that's your right to make choices for yourself. Just find the right doctor. And if you're not feeling good about what your doctor says, go to another doctor. I know it takes time and it stinks, but I think you'll be happier once you find someone. Because when I went to Denise and she told me what was going on with my blood, I went, this is right. This is right. This is what, and it wasn't because I wanted her to say what she said. It was because it felt right and it made sense and it added up. So you should feel like that when you leave your gynecologist for the most part. That would be my advice. Talk to your gynecologist. And if you're not happy with what they have to say, if you have a gut reaction, go see another one. Good luck.
Hey, LeeAnn and Bert, if you're there. So I am a stepmom to a 12-year-old little girl, little woman. I've been in her life since she was 5, and we're entering this preteen, girly catfight nonsense era.
Grr.
LeeAnn, I was kind of like you as a girl, where I was a tomboy. I hung out with the dudes. I didn't deal with this, but she is very girly. She is into cheer. She has this huge group of girlfriends, and we've started the hate each other one week, best friends the next, lots of tears and lots of giggles. And I wasn't sure if you experienced this with your 2 girls and if you have any advice from one tomboy to another. Love you guys so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I didn't experience exactly what you're talking about. However, I'll tell you this. I hope my kids never hear this because I don't want it to hurt their feelings. But a 55-year-old woman does not give a shit about the drama a 19-year-old is having. And I don't care that so-and-so's talking behind so-and-so's back and so-and-so's talking to so-and-so's boyfriend. I don't give a shit about that. It's not how I functioned ever. However, I dig deep and I get interested in what my daughter is talking about because that is her world. And my role in her world is to be there. Is to be there and to be what she needs. Now, obviously, if there's some really bad behavior going on, I do speak up and go, I don't know if that's healthy. But for the most part, I have one daughter who's very into, actually both my daughters are very into kind of drama in a way that is not interesting to me and I don't think ever has been. So I would advise you to dig deep in some of those situations and know that you and I, being tomboys, weren't like that. But you and I, being tomboys, know that that's the way a lot of girls are. You know, I had a daughter who talked trash about all her friends the whole way to school and then got to school and was best friends with them. My other daughter doesn't function exactly like that, and it would unnerve her. And I would have to say, this is how she processes the world. Like it or not, she processes the world differently than you do. We can't make her feel bad or wrong about being different. So you have to find a way to embrace your sister as who she is and understand that the trash talking she does is not how you function, but she's not a bad person. She just processes the world and relationships differently. And she may be this way forever. So you have to choose. Are you going to be in a contentious relationship with your sister, or are you going to be in a copacetic relationship with your sister? And how do you make that copacetic relationship happen? The reverse was true for the other sister. So the sister that was into drama would get upset because the other sister didn't want to go where the drama was. So she doesn't want to go with me. She doesn't want to hang out with me. Yeah, because she don't want to sit in this bullshit drama. But then I'd have to get her to say, you got to understand, this is how the drama is. For her, she doesn't process the world that way. So you can choose to have a contentious relationship or a copacetic one. Your choice. You have to see each other as different and okay. I've mentioned this book a million times. I'll mention it again. I read a book called Untangled. You can also listen to it on audio. And it's about teenage girls and the growth and development that happens in their brain, the why of the drama that they create, the why of the picking of the fights, the why, the lying, the why, the control, the why, the I hate you this week, I don't hate you the next. It was such an incredibly important book for me to read. I would highly recommend you read or listen to that book. Their brain is doing the same thing their brain did when they were a toddler. They are shedding neurons at a rapid pace, and that's making everything out of balance. So my mother-in-law used to say, kids go from equilibrium to disequilibrium their entire child until you're about 23. You go equilibrium, disequilibrium, equilibrium, disequilibrium. When you're a teenager, it's happening almost moment to moment. It's the same pattern that happened when they were about 4, when they start just shedding neurons. They start shedding neurons from 4 to about 7. Things start solidifying around 7, just in human growth and development in your brain. So the same thing's happening right now, starting in 12, and it goes on for a while. So for me, it was really helpful to understand that some of what she's doing is out of her control. Some of what she's doing is part of who she is. And some of what she's doing is just a power struggle in being a teenager. As an adult, it's your responsibility, in my opinion, to do your best to recognize which one is happening and when, and parent that appropriately. When I had younger teenagers at home, someone gave me this advice. What they need from you is to be an air fern, which means to be there always and to not need anything from them for your emotional well-being, right? So not to need a copacetic relationship. You might want one, or you might strive for that. That's great. But to not need it, because your job is to be a parent, not a friend. Your job is to be a mentor, not a friend. And sometimes you're going to butt heads. It's just part of it. Being a pragmatic, practical thinker, somewhat masculine in my relationships and directness, I cannot say that was easy. It was very challenging. But I did have a lot of talks with myself about the goal being allowing her to explore who she is with a safe person, which was me. It doesn't mean I didn't fight with my kids. I did. Doesn't mean I didn't yell at them. I did. It doesn't mean that we didn't butt heads. I did. But like I said earlier in this episode, as long as your good's outweighing your bad, you're ahead of the game. So I would read that book Untangled or listen to it. And I would consider that this is pretty normal. If your good's outweighing your bad, you're ahead of the game. Sounds like you're a great stepmom. The curious part about I had a stepmom in that age in my life. I had a stepmom they didn't get married, but she was around from the time I was about 7 until I was 19. In some ways, that love is more fragile than your actual mom or dad, because you know for sure your actual mom and dad aren't leaving for the most part. I didn't really know that, but most people know their mom and dad aren't leaving. If you have a good relationship, sounds like you've been in her life a long time. And if you've had a healthy relationship up to this point, and she's just in the teenage years, it's back and forth and hard, your love is a chosen love. It's not required. You chose to love her and you chose to be there. And in some ways, that love is a bit more fragile than just mom or dad. So I just wanted to put that on the table for you so you can think about maybe how important you are to her in ways she herself doesn't yet understand. And sometimes I think kids lash out at the people who mean the most. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. These years are really challenging in that, based on the book Untangled, a lot of what they were saying about why teenage girls lie and things like that really tested my fortitude, because I don't lie. I'm not a liar. And basically the advice in that book was they're lying to try to be autonomous, to try to be their own person. So you kind of have to choose when you're going to call someone on a lie and when not. And that was so counterintuitive. And I had a very difficult time with that. But I took her advice and I did that. And I think if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've read this book. What you're trying to keep intact in that time period is not so much that child's integrity. They're testing their integrity because they're testing everything. But it's your relationship. So that even if you have an argument, or even if you call her on something, if you call her on every single thing she does, you're no longer a safe place. You have to call her on the things that are really important to let her know, no, this one is a deal breaker. I think that's really the focus of this time period in their life, is that let them bang up against your boundaries some and then grab a hold of them when it's really important. That would be my advice. I hope it's helpful. Good luck. 12 is hard.
Hi, LeeAnn. My name is Ashley Davies. I am your number one fan. I got to meet you last year at the Two Bears 5K, and I've been following you since you started this podcast. I've listened to every episode.
Oh, my gosh.
I just wanted to call and say thank you for that episode on divorce. I've been married 11 years to my husband. He's also a bear. Love him dearly, but we've been going through a lot of struggles, and it's just so nice to have a podcast like yours to help guide me through motherhood and marriage and mental health and women's issues, perimenopause, all of that stuff. So just wanted to call and thank you and send you my gratitude for all that you have done for me in my life. And I guess my biggest question is, what's your advice for a mom of two girls with a husband who I love dearly, but we seem to be hitting this 11-year itch, and it's just really taken its toll on our marriage. I just want to know from maybe someone that's been through a hard time before with Bert, what you suggest we do. We're both just feeling like we want to be heard and respected by the other. We are in therapy. I'm in therapy. We're really trying to work hard at this because we both want this marriage to last. Anyway, just wanted your advice, and I wanted to say thank you so much for all that you've done for me in my life. And I just want you to know that you've touched me so profoundly. Love you, love Bert, love that you've got two girls just like I do, and hope I hear from you on the episode. All right, take care. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. That's so nice to hear. Wow, you've been listening to every episode. That's crazy. That's a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, sounds like you're in therapy individually and in therapy with him. I have a few things to say. I think rough patches come in every relationship, in every marriage, every friendship, every parent-child relationship, every work relationship. We all have moments where we're not feeling maybe the best, or we're just not in lockstep with each other. I think that's normal. I think that you're going to therapy together is amazing. Over and above that, I think, like I said earlier in this episode, I think honesty is your best friend in moments where you're like, I'm not feeling right. To continue to be honest with yourself and to give your partner the grace of being honest with them and accepting their honesty. I'm not suggesting that you like break up or anything, but just to continue to go, I'm not feeling quite right yet. I've said this in so many podcasts, but it might be that you do a little summit. You know, Bert and I do a summit like once a year where we sit down and we talk about every single piece in our life like a business meeting. No emotion, like how's the money? How are the kids? Where do you want a vacation? What do you want work to look like? What do you want our relationship to look like? What's working? What's not working? Just like you would sit down and have a staff meeting, except it's for us, is for our marriage, because marriage is a partnership, and a partnership in some ways is like a business. And we kind of like put our weapons down at the door and just have an honest conversation, wanting to understand the other person and wanting to be understood. If you show up wanting to understand your spouse and he shows up wanting to understand you, then you will be understood. You won't have to take care of yourself in that way because you'll be taking care of him and he'll be taking care of you. So sometimes for a summit, I will sit down and really write out my thoughts, not in like a long, but like in a bullet point form. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this, and really make an agenda for what's going on. And then once you get all of those things out of the table, you can agree on practical applications of adjusting where things aren't working. I feel like that's a bit different than going to therapy, because in therapy, you talk about how things make you feel. But oftentimes, you know, habits, I don't think really work as well as systems work, right? If you have a system in place and you apply that system, then you can get results. A habit, you're like, I don't feel like doing that today, and it falls apart. But I'll give you working out as an example. I have a system for working out. I work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I work out with the same workout partner. I pick her up and I drive her and I drop her off, and it happens every week, and that is my system. And the system runs like a machine. It's just automatic every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I've put a system in place and it kind of runs itself. And I just refuse to get off my system. Now, I could look at it as a habit and go, I could not do that today, so I'm not feeling like it. I'm so tired. But I've framed it to be systemic. There are things that you can do in your marriage that are that way, that will cause a feeling, but you approach without a feeling. For example, Bert makes me breakfast when we're home. I think that's the most amazing thing and a great expression of love. It's very systemic. He wakes up, he makes me breakfast. He wakes up, he makes me breakfast. The end result of that is I feel very loved. So that's kind of a simplistic way you could put things in place. If you sit down at a summit and you go, I'm not feeling connected. Well, what makes you feel connected? Well, what makes me feel connected is when you take care of me, like make me coffee, a cup of coffee. Oh, I can totally do that. I'll start making you a cup of coffee every day. And when that system is put in place and that system is fulfilled every day, it positively affects how you feel. The same way with my working out system. I work out 3 days a week. I feel so good about myself. But I'm not approaching the system with feeling. I'm approaching the system as a system. And it's causing a positive feeling. So I think we get in marriages and we rightfully so, get very mixed and enmeshed with our emotions. And emotions are very much part of a marriage. But it doesn't have to be all emotional. It can also be systemic. And I think sometimes when you look at systems, what's interesting about discussing a system in the context of a relationship is if you need a system and the partner's not willing to do the system, or if that system is too taxing or too difficult or makes that other person unhappy, you've got a real disconnect. And you have to find out how you get that need met. If not from the spouse, from where? From a friend, from a therapist, and let that be okay if that's okay within the context of your relationship. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where your spouse can't be everything. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just saying when you sit down at a summit and you can identify a couple places that would make you feel better, and if your spouse is not able to fulfill those places, like I want you to make me a cup of coffee every day, and he's like, I just can't do that, well, then that's something you can talk about. Or that's something you could say, well, then I can take care of myself here. How about over here? How about you do this instead? And then you can kind of figure out what makes you feel better in a matter-of-fact, direct way. That's what I would do, I think, if I was feeling the way that you're feeling and already in therapy. You clearly love your husband. You clearly are a conscientious person who's trying to find a solution, or maybe not, maybe solution is the wrong word, a new way maybe of functioning in this marriage. In my experience, I've only been married for 21 years. But the marriage, almost not the intention of the marriage, but the purpose sort of the marriage changes. It has kind of different purposes maybe. And it's been really interesting to experience, because I go, well, in the beginning, it was all about love and romance and excitement and fun and play. And then we had kids, and it was about duty and teaching and learning and coping and helping each other. And then as the kids got older, it got back into a little bit of play, but we still had these responsibilities of these kids. And now the kids are leaving. And now it's become a different kind of play and a different kind of support that comes with a lot of depth and meaning that couldn't have possibly been there in the beginning. All that's grown through these other phases. But now this phase is different. And I oftentimes struggle not with my marriage, but like, what is the growth here now? And what do we each want now? And how do we grow together from here? And what does this next chapter look like? I think being married is fascinating. I've 7 divorces between my 2 parents. I've never seen a long-term relationship that's had an evolution. And an evolution doesn't come A, in a vacuum, or B, with a blindfold on. You have to have these moments of disequilibrium to get yourself back into equilibrium. I think that's a gift if you can get back into equilibrium. And guess what? If you can't, because the person you were when you married and the person you are today is different and needs such drastically different things than you did before, and you've really evaluated it and you've really worked hard at it. Like I said earlier, there's one person on this planet that's responsible for your happiness, and that is you. You are responsible for your happiness. So work at it as hard as you can. But at the end of the day, you have to be happy in the choices you make. That doesn't mean you have to get everything you want. It means you have to be happy with the compromise you're making. Marriage is compromise. There's no marriage where there's no compromise. There absolutely is compromise. If one spouse is getting everything and the other spouse is not getting anything, that's not compromise. So being realistic about what you're willing to compromise on is very important too. When I was younger, I called it deal breakers. When I found out Bert was such a big slob, I had to say to myself, is this a deal breaker? Because if it is, you should stop now. But if it isn't, then you move forward knowing this will be frustrating, but it's worth the pain in the ass for the rest of it. Those are great conversations to have too. Something may irritate you, but you have to ask yourself, is that a deal breaker? If the answer is yes, that is a deal breaker, then you have 2 questions. Can we work on this together to affect change so I'm happier? Maybe not to get all that you want, but to, again, find a compromise so that you can feel okay about it. Or is this something I just have to walk away from? Hard question to answer. You have to be honest with yourself fully and not be afraid of being completely honest, because when you stop being honest with yourself, that's when things really start falling apart. That's when you're unable to fix something, because you'll be working to fix the wrong thing because you haven't been honest with yourself. When you know exactly what is wrong with you, what's wrong, what's going on with you, then you can have an honest conversation about how to fix that. But if you're not honest with yourself, how do you fix it? You can't. That's impossible. You'll just be banging your head against the wall with your spouse. So be honest with yourself. Be willing to compromise. Be willing to meet that person with the goal of listening and hearing their experience, because you already know your own. And if that spouse is there with the same intention to hear and know your experience, then you'll each get heard. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your spouse. Sometimes right when you think it's time to give up is right when things start working. So yeah, just be patient and continue to reach out for help. Read books, listen to podcasts about it, about what, like defining what you want in a marriage. Those are great things to think about just on your own. And then you can bring to the table if you ever decide to do a summit with your husband. The summit is awesome. We freaking love it every time because we feel like it's so cool to learn what the other person has on their mind. You know, you get into the day-to-day of life and sometimes you leave out some deep thoughts that's going on in your head, and you just kind of sit down and go, here's what's on my mind about our relationship and our life. Is very kind of freeing. So I don't know. That's what I would do if I were you. I wish you the best of luck. Marriage is so fun and frustrating and confusing and wonderful. It's just a big stew of everything. So I don't know. I hope your stew keeps cooking after you do a little more work. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for being such a long time listener. I appreciate that. Well, it's so funny that I'm going to get fucking emotional. Oh, just give me a second. The universe is an amazing place. You know, I woke up today, I went to therapy, and I was talking to my therapist about feeling very lost and about feeling like I don't know anything and that I'm confused about what I'm supposed to be doing in life now. This transition from full nest to empty nest is very difficult. I woke up today going, I think a parenthood is like a booby prize. Your goal is to get your kids to leave the house and thrive. And when they do, you go, are you kidding me? What have I been working for this whole time? For you to leave? And I woke up this morning very confused and feeling the opposite of wise, the opposite of someone that had any viable advice for any person. And I got all these phone calls on this line saying, your wisdom, your wisdom, your wisdom. And I don't think that's a mistake. I think it's because I sat today saying I don't feel very wise, that the universe says, I'm going to have a bunch of people tell you that you're wise. So as much as I appreciate what everyone said about how much this podcast meant to you and how my advice is good for you, I'll take this moment to say how important those calls were to me today on this particular day where I woke up feeling not wise and just not. So thank you for calling and sharing and asking the question and wanting to know and telling me how much my podcast means to you, because it means a lot to me too. It really does. I mean, a sense of community means a lot to me. And actually today I was like, this morning I thought, I need to re-people. I need more people. I don't feel like I have enough people. So I'm used to, drop off and pick up. I'd see 20, 30 people every day. And now I see the like handful of people in my office every day. And I was just feeling without people. So your phone calls today made me feel very much like I have a lot of people. So as much as you may have called and said, I help you, I just want you to know how much you helped me today. So thank you. And if you want to call in with a question for the wise, weepy person that's finishing this podcast, the phone number is 818 949
8536.
8536. 818-949-8536. Please call. I'm happy to answer any questions. I probably won't really know the answer, or at least the way I'm feeling today, but I'll do my best to give you what I got. Thank you so much for everyone who's listened, especially all these people who've been listening all these years. It's been a real gift to me to have my podcast and to create this community and go out in the world and have people say exactly what a lot of people said to me, which is, I love this podcast. So thank you so much. And till next time.